Yeah. Well, first, I feel like the roles kind of chose me. I wasn't able to choose the roles, and those programs range from helping the district to draft its policy on what are now called small learning communities to what we now call linked learning, which is a college and career curriculum, and also the charter school facilities issues. The thing that kind of the common thread for me is the emphasis on the teaching and learning relationship, and how do you try to design systems that radiate out from that relationship. There's a lot of talk about it's all about the students. You'll hear that a lot in education, or putting the students first, and sometimes it's a way of stopping a conversation, and sometimes it's a way of saying I've been doing for a long time, and thanks but no thanks. And so and there have been a lot of reform du jour, in the district about every 5 years, whatever, the reform evaporates. And so trying to use each opportunity for change as a way of revisiting the conversation about how systems need to empower the teaching and learning relationship, whatever that reform is. I think that's how you piece it together. That's how I've tried to piece it together.
Great.
I don't think I caught every part of that question.
You caught the vast majority of it.
That's fine. This feels a little bit like a public interview. This is kind of what it feels like. A lot more friendly.
We'll try to relax a little bit more. Sure. So, thinking about your experience as a student at Whittier College, then what prepared you in that experience here for those kinds of situations where you're meeting people that have different backgrounds and different levels of experience in their own profession? Is there anything that you can point to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've never been a classroom educator, and I think being upfront about that's important, and it helps you come to the role with some humility. And one of the many things I got out of my experience at Whittier College was the ability to listen to people who I might not agree with, and whose backgrounds were different than mine, and who had different goals and different values. And that's really important when you're trying to support a relationship that you don't have, that my only experience in is as the learner in the teaching and learning. And I would say, certainly we know that it's a two-way street between teachers and students, and teachers learn from students, but Whittier helped me to listen. And Whittier also gave me the opportunity to get really good at learning curve. And that, to me, if there is one hard skill that is indispensable, it's that. It's being able to be a quick study and to put my nose to the grindstone and underwrite the success of the program. I chose to study in Guadalajara, Mexico, because a lot of folks from this area are from Jalisco, and so I grew up out here, and I wanted to know more about the place I was from by knowing more about the people I grew up with. And so I thought of the places I could study abroad, that was the place to go. And once I got there and made some friends, they said, if you want to know Mexico, you have to go south. You have to go south. You have to go to Oaxaca. And I was already at that time in life maybe a little radicalized, and so I'm waiting for René to start laughing because we were in school together. And so when I got the chance, I joined the Peace Corps and went to Guatemala, and I was there during 9/11, and the world kind of turned upside down. I thought I was in a dangerous place, and I realized, no, the dangerous place now is home. It's weird. And I felt like it changed my view of service. I thought, you know, maybe I need to think about this crazy opportunity I have by luck of birth and see how that can help my community to use this incredible power we have by simply being from Los Angeles to not make a huge mistake on the global stage right now. And so I came home to get involved in education because from what I saw, it didn't look like as a nation we had a robust enough public education system to engage this incredible debate between East and West in a way that was going to be less dangerous. And so I got involved in the peace movement. And through that, I got a chance to work with LAUSD organizing a school facilities bond because we hadn't built a school in East LA since 1937. I said, I'll do that. I'll get involved in that. And so I got a 3-month contract to organize bond. And one of the instructional superintendents said, yeah, it's one thing to build the buildings, but you gotta help change what goes on inside of them. And so he said, you know, there's this thing called small learning communities. Why don't you help us organize that project? And one thing led to another, and I kept stretching it. You know, I kept stretching it out. And so, you know, fundamentally, my radical politics led me to, and my compulsion to serve led me to education. You know, it's a very Tocquevillian approach, right? But so it's a little corny, but that's how I ended up here. Yeah.
Looking at this room full of students, what's the piece of takeaway advice that you want to share with them based on what you've learned then?
Oh boy. Based on what I've learned, the takeaway advice would be, geez, you know, I've been thinking about it in order to come in here. So I think it's really important, and this is a great place to make an effort to figure out who you are and what's important to you, and commit yourself to that, and realize and have some faith, and realize that you may not always be in a role that fully gratifies that vision of yourself. And then it's important to think about how you are in that role and what is it you need to learn at that moment. And that's a takeaway for me from Whittier College. You know, I flunked out of Whittier College initially, and I went to work. And I came back many years later and graduated. I did very well. So I took a non-traditional path at a time. I graduated high school in 1989, and non-traditional student, it was a real weird thing back then. And I don't think it's as weird now, but you know, I think it's important to know who you are and to think about how you do things.
So the LA Conservation Corps is one of the conservation corps. There's many of them throughout the United States. Los Angeles is one of the largest one in the U.S. What we do is we focus on green jobs and educating youth, especially inner city youth, about the importance of the environment. We have 3 charter schools, and we're growing to, I think, 2 more charter schools in underserved areas. So we have them in Watts, Compton, Pico Union, and then I work in South Central. We know it as South Central, but it's in the heart of LA, down the street from USC, basically. So the Corps has been around, I believe, since the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. And we have, where I work is the charter school called Headquarters High School. That's what we nickname it. And at that school, there's 18 to 24-year-olds that are getting their high school diploma. So it's a non-traditional, smaller classroom with teachers that really understand their backgrounds and understand that, you know, maybe half the class is a parent, or maybe the class, you know, has been to prison or has some kind of background. So they kind of understand those social issues and barriers that come along with being an 18, 24-year-old that hasn't received a high school diploma. So at the charter school, On the bottom of the building are the classrooms, traditional classes, math, English, science. We have teachers. And then I work upstairs from the classrooms, and I am there for college access purposes. So if a student says, you know what, I want to go to USC, and our school right now doesn't have the A through G requirements established, so they can't go to USC from our school. And so I kind of have to sit them down and explain to them, you can transfer from LA Trade Tech, or you can go to ELAC, and kind of set the reality for them and help them step by step apply for the FAFSA. I think I've helped like 40 students apply for the FAFSA this year. So if anybody has questions, you can ask me. My mom does, she always asks me. So as far as college access, we have, my boss is the college readiness coordinator, and he's in charge of creating larger programs. And they have a program called the Los Angeles Reconnection Academy. I think they call it LARCA, and it's federal funds that were given for us to focus on career pathways. That's the big thing right now, is individualizing everybody's career pathways and where they want to go. As far as their vocational education, we motivate them to do vocational. Maybe they don't want to go to a traditional college and study English, but they want to be in construction or they want to be a plumber. We help them realize where do you go to learn those trades. So that's a little bit about the core. And the big difference is the students go to school for 2 months and then they go to work for 2 months. So they're out in the field, building dog parks, cleaning the river. We also have what's called the Sea Lab, and it's like a tiny aquarium where the students actually take care of huge fish. I think a lot of fish. And in order to be placed in the Sea Lab, you have to have really good grades. You kind of have to earn it. And then we have an East LA site and a South LA site where we recycle. So the Staples Center, Dodger Stadium, if you ever see any students or any people at night recycling all the stuff, that we have our own recycling facility. And we get a lot of revenue from that, and the students get a job in turn. So our model is putting them to work in green jobs and then helping them get their high school diploma.
So you were talking a little bit about this whole career pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
We're wondering how you got your job.
Oh, a Whittier College person helped me get my job. She texted me. So I was working with the Corps before. I was working in the projects in Watts, and kind of, it was a temporary contract position, so I had no benefits or anything. And then I had a friend who was a year younger than me here at Whittier, and she texted me, and she said, Nadine, I'm quitting my job. You would be perfect. And I was like, okay. So I applied for her job, and she left. She's at Cal State Northridge now. And I got the job, and whenever I have any issues, I can text her and be like, what did you do when this happened, because I went to school with her here at Whittier, and a lot of my jobs have been because of networking and because of Whittier. Yeah.
So what's a piece of advice you'd have for students then? They find the internship,
Mm-hmm.
but they're graduating and they want to turn it into a full-time. Do you have any keys?
Yeah, so that happened to me. I was a Whittier College student. I worked for the USDA Forest Service. I worked my butt off. I did above and beyond. I always asked everybody if they needed help. I went to the geologists and the accounting and kind of saw what they were doing, even though that had nothing to do with me. I kind of made friends there and networked, right? And one of the ladies who was in my department, she quit because she got a degree, and then she wanted to be a high school counselor. She got her PPS, thank you. She got her PPS and became a high school counselor. So I fit right in. So I graduated in May, and then in July I got offered a full-time job with benefits with the federal government, which is awesome benefits, or was awesome benefits. And so I worked there for about 2 or 3 years with Smokey Bear. That's what I tell people. And the way that I made it into a job is by always being on top of stuff, being organized. Every day before I left, I made sure that my desk was clean. And little things like that make a big difference. So when your boss comes by, they're like, oh wow, she's very organized. But sometimes I just filed things and got them out of the way. But I would just say don't take things for granted, and absolutely get an internship, paid or unpaid, because right now is a difficult time. And I remember at my graduation in 2009, they were like, congratulations, you guys are in an economic depression. And we're like, that's not what I want to hear on my graduation. But luckily I had an internship and it was paid internship as well. But I would just say look for an internship. So we have a program with USC, but I remember one time there was a Whittier College student, so that was exciting.
Sure, education is in the blood, and it's the whole family experience. So grandparents, aunts and uncles are all in education. In fact, my wife, who's also a Whittier College alumnus, an Athenian from 2000 and I think 3. She is also an educator, so it was part of the whole culture of my home life to go into education, and I found a different way to achieve that outlet of focusing on education, but following in on my background and my academic preparation and interest in political science and sociology. Just wanted to, if it's okay, if I can turn it to the audience just for a second.
Sure.
And just, I can't hear you. Maybe you can unmute me when I ask this question. But how many students are political science students?
Wait, hold on a sec.
Maybe it's by applause.
There you go. Raise your hands again.
Just one.
1, 2, 3,
Few.
3.
How many are sociology students?
1. 1.
The same one. And the other question was, how many of you are Franklins?
Any Franklins?
Prospect.
Prospect, maybe. We have maybe a prospect.
Well, I was just going to say it's actually a similar question to what Sean answered. You know, what in my college preparation and life on campus actually helped me achieve what I achieved today in my work life. And I would say that political science really helped me understand complex bureaucracies and political environments and how to navigate those. The sociology work helped me to understand how large masses of people, groups, actually move and why they move. And then the Franklin Society taught me entrepreneurship and innovation, which are all of those things put together in that Whittier College experience. That liberal arts education is really what allowed me to achieve success in my early career. Whether, you know, it was working for a large political organization like the U.S. Department of Education, working as the chief of staff, to working in a nonprofit status, to opening up a new division, a new consulting division at an older established association. Those things, all that I traced back to political science, sociology, and my society life actually contributed to the success in the after career. So encourage all of you to also follow that similar path and make use of the resources and experiences that exist on campus.
That's really great, Renee.
Wait, he's on.
Oh, sorry.
You gotta take me off mute.
There we go.
All right. I said that's really great and that's helpful. And I'm also wondering, did you have a particular mentor or any kind of alumni connection, networking that also helped you in this? Or how have you navigated your way between these different types of organizations?
Well, Whittier alumni definitely played a big role. I happened to be lucky enough to be the president of the student body in my junior and senior year, and during that time had a real focus on bringing on board members to the board of trustees that had the interest of the students. And the way to accomplish that was to actually go out and recruit one. And so I met with a Whittier College alumni who was a distinguished member of the U.S. Department of Education in the past. He was the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Research and Improvement and was leading a nonprofit. In meeting him during my senior year, the summer internship, I actually had the opportunity to talk to him and invite him to be on the board. And in that dialogue, we hit it off pretty well. And he agreed to be on the board of trustees, and luckily the board of trustees welcomed him. But for my sake, the positive thing for my sake is that he offered me a job after graduating to work at the nonprofit as a policy analyst within his nonprofit association. And so that was how all of that work started, and my career in Washington, D.C. began.
Great, thank you.
Wait, sorry.
Okay.
I was so into it, I didn't think to unmute.
One last quick question is, now that you know what you do and how you started your own organization, what class would you take at Whittier College now that you wish you didn't, that you wish you had? Is there anything that you shouldn't miss out on?
Oh, geez. I can't think. I feel like I took a pretty broad course load.
Okay.
Ranging in the sociology, clinical science, and social work, and early childhood education, and all of those. It was the opportunity that actually existed to piece together a pretty broad-based curriculum for myself that led to that success. So I think the breadth of opportunity in terms of the course offerings at Whittier are there, and I can't think of one that I should have taken because I took so many different varying types of courses.
Well, I'm actually happy to say that the reason that I started academic research was because of Dr. Paula Sheridan, who's here in the room, and she's my mentor and a professor here. And she actually invited me to do my first research project that focused on first-generation Latinos and their families at Whittier College. And so she became interested in this topic partly because of our relationship. But also because a lot of the students in the social work department had similar backgrounds, and so she was the catalyst of all of that and has really sparked an interest in studying college students in different phases of their college experience. So my dissertation actually focused on the relationships between faculty and students, and how faculty act as institutional agents, which is a sociological term, for low-income Latino students who go into the STEM fields at a Hispanic serving institution. So there's a lot of layers to that. And partly that was informed because of my relationship with Paula and seeing the importance of the relationships between the teacher and the student, and the impact that it makes on students. So that's been my area recently because of my work at USC. I did a lot of research on in analyzing policies and practices at institutions that sort of created inequities for racially and ethnically diverse students, primarily Latino and African American students at the community college level and their transfer pattern into four-year institutions. So. And then in my current job, I do a lot of work in terms of retention transition for all students in particular, but right now my focus is on transfer students, as we are seeing a large increase in our transfer student population at Cal Poly Pomona specifically, and at a lot of other four-year institutions, as there's a lot of legislative policies that are facilitating the transfer of students into from 2-year to 4-year institutions. And so that's been really my focus. I also serve on sort of a program evaluation committee. I'm the chair of the assessment committee for our division. And so that takes a lot of research. It's like mini research projects all the time. So I've been coined the nerd of the division, which is fine. I will accept it. But that's really my emphasis in student learning, engagement, and retention.
That's great. It sounds, however, like you also have a bit of experience in the practice side. And so for students here tonight that are thinking, okay, I'm interested in ed policy, but maybe being a teacher or maybe working in student affairs, do you have any advice of like where they should get started, how they can begin to kind of clarify what makes most sense for them?
I mean, definitely the internship perspective. I think my internship worked on the opposite. It really showed me what I didn't want to do. And so, no offense, but, you know, I worked at a drug abuse counseling facility. And while I think I did a great job and really utilized my strengths, it really taught me that that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. That I was passionate about, you know, educational issues. And I didn't really know, you know, what student affairs was. I actually received a brochure once in the mail, and I'm like, okay, this sounds cool. You know, I was a commuter student, so I wasn't as engaged on campus. My engagement was with the social work department, being part of the social work council, and being, you know, part of the Hispanic Student Association. I think it's called something different now. So that was really my niche, and so ask a lot of questions. Even if you don't know what questions you're asking, just ask a lot of questions and observe and really take it in. And if you are really going to be in education, really be committed to it. I think that sometimes, you know, I always hear this term, oh, well, if that doesn't work, I'm going to go become a teacher. You know, you have a lot of role models. You've all been students. You've all been in school. And so ask your teachers if that's interested. Ask them if you could shadow them. Ask, you know, if you're interested in student affairs. There's a lot of student affairs practitioners here on campus. Ask them if you could have an informational interview. You know, I think that you'll never know what you want to do unless, you know, you don't know, or you just have to ask. You just have to be curious. You have to really just be motivated to kind of have that self-discovery. I think that's something that I always tell my students at Cal Poly, and I tell all students that I meet, is that you'll never have an opportunity to really do trial and error things, and this is such the perfect opportunity to mess up and to ask a lot of questions, and it's also an opportunity to excel in a safe environment.
Well, actually, I never wanted to become an administrator. I really wanted to be a teacher. So my path was very unusual. I was very fortunate. I graduated from Whittier College in May, and in July I signed a teaching contract. So September, I was starting off as a first-year teacher, and I was thrilled. It was really what I wanted to do most. So I taught U.S. History and World Civ at Pioneer High School in the Whittier Union High School District. And I did that for 7 years, and my principal and assistant principal at the time said to me, I just, my second year of teaching, I earned my master's degree, and it was because of my principal that I did it in educational administration. He said, you really need to do this. So just think the world of that gentleman, still do. He's a dear friend of mine and remains so. So it was at his urging that I completed the master's in educational administration. As soon as I did, then I was getting pressure to apply for different positions. So I remember telling our principal at the time, well, he wanted me to apply to be assistant principal at California High School. And I said, I don't really want to be an assistant principal. I don't want to be an assistant, or I don't want to be an administrator. And he said, well, this would be a wonderful learning experience, because it's a pretty rigorous process to have to go through the interview and application process. So he said, there are two gentlemen that are shoo-ins for the job. They have a lot of experience, so don't worry about it if you don't want to be an administrator. This will just be a good learning experience. So I said, okay. So I did, and then I was really startled and taken aback when I was called in the personnel office and said, you're it. And I said, well, wait a minute, what happened? There's been a little bit of a mistake here. I feel so terrible. I should have never applied for the job. What happened? I was looking for the chicken exit. I thought, gosh, so it was, I just entered into it by a fluke, really. But I loved it. Mm-hmm. I loved it, and I served in that position for 6 years, and then my superintendent called me up and asked me to, actually he didn't ask me. I thought he asked me, but it was clear when I said to him, he was telling me that he was going to move me to Santa Fe High School to be assistant principal in curriculum because he wanted me to become a principal. And I said, I don't really want to become a principal. I love what I'm doing now. I feel like I'm making a big difference. I love working directly with the kids in this position. And he stopped me and he said, let me be clear. I'm not asking you if you want to go. So I said, I'm so sorry. It wasn't really clear at first. So when do I move? So then I became assistant principal of curriculum. The end of that year, the principal announces that she's going to be retiring. The next day I get a call from the superintendent, you're going to be the principal at Santa Fe High School. And I thought, gosh, I'm just a chess piece. I have no control over my career. I threw myself into that work and loved it, absolutely loved it. And then I was moved to become assistant superintendent in educational services. Very, very difficult for me to move from that position just because I always wanted to work directly with kids. So going to the DO, the district office, was something I thought, gosh, am I going to shrivel up and die behind a desk? I just didn't really know exactly what that was going to be all about, And it was a really, really difficult transition for me because it was a very, very different level of work. My child at the time was 7, so it was really a God thing that it worked out that way because I had so much more time for my baby, and it worked out really well. And I was in ed services, so my focus was teaching and learning, which is what matters most. So I did that for 4 years, and then the superintendent comes into my office after he had announced that he was going to retire, and he said the board of trustees doesn't want to go through a selection process. They just want to appoint you as superintendent. And I said, no way. Really? I said, I don't really want to go back from the frying pan to the fire with the number of hours. I'm loving, I love my work, but my family is what matters most to me. He said, yeah. They know that. They want to talk to you. So I went in to talk to them, and I came out superintendent, and that was 12 years ago. So it's an unusual pathway.
It is, but I mean, what you're saying is very interesting, and I think that for everybody that's sitting here, once you kind of get going, it turns out a little differently than you thought, and it keeps on, I suppose, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes you're really very, very happy, and other times you're learning something new.
I learned that in each of the positions that I left, I was really distraught about leaving. I was so invested where I was. I loved my kids, my colleagues. I was so feeling like I was really contributing there. It was hard for me to leave. But after the second move, I realized, if you just have a really, really great attitude about life and you embrace your work, and you demonstrate a really strong work ethic and the ability to be able to work with everybody, all sorts of different people, and the ability to be able to motivate and inspire kids and colleagues, and then people just notice, and whether you want a promotion or not, things happen, and it's because of your day-to-day behaviors. Whether you're showing that your desk is clean and you're well organized and you have great time management skills and you have the ability to collaborate and share best practices and help to move your colleagues that you work with, whatever career it's in, people notice. I'll tell you, there's a lot of terrific universities and colleges in our country, but there are not that many that are at the level that Whittier College is and provide the kind of really relevant resources. For example, this Backpack-to-Briefcase program, I've never heard of that before. That's wonderful. I didn't have the benefit of having that when I was a kid here at Whittier College. I had an outstanding experience at Whittier College, and it helped me to get my first job right out of college. But there are so many different things that the college provides for you. And I really want to commend you for being here tonight. So there's a lot of your classmates out there that are missing out, that didn't take the initiative to come here tonight. And I know I've learned a whole lot from the panelists. I'm so proud of every one of them and inspired by every one of them. I hope you are too. But it really is so important to take that initiative. And as you were mentioning, to ask questions, to reach out. Don't be passive. Don't be passive. Don't be overly ambitious, but don't be passive, and take advantage of all the incredible resources that are offered here. I believe in a small learning institution. I believe that it's so much better for you. Because in a really, really large university, people don't know who you are. They won't think about providing these sorts of incredible experiences. So you're in a really wonderful place, and take advantage of it, every bit of it. Because I was anxious at first, and I lacked some confidence, and I thought, gosh, I'm in college now, and am I going to be able to make it? Am I going to be able to meet the expectations? And I think it's just really, really important to believe in yourself, and especially because you have this amazing college, and the benefit of having the smallness of it, the personalization, the closeness with professors. That's a huge, huge asset. So I always tell our new teachers every year, don't ever, ever, ever underestimate any student. It doesn't matter what their circumstances are, every single one of them can succeed and really exceed our expectations if they've got a really, really great team of teachers ensuring that they're going to be provided with the tools and skills that they need to succeed. So I would say don't underestimate yourselves. I mean, you can absolutely do even more than you can imagine.
I was at Whittier, didn't do well, had too much fun, came back after working, and so I was deadly serious about my education at that point. Like, I did the reading and the recommended reading and my own reading, and knew I had this very rare opportunity. I'd really sweated it out for many years working, but even with that, the thing I wish I would have known coming in the second time when I was doing it for real was that, and I could feel it happening, I just didn't understand what was happening. Whittier gives you a lot of momentum. Whittier is going to put in front of you opportunities that are real, that you can really grab onto. And I don't know if you could do it at other places or not. I don't know, but you're here. A lot of momentum coming out of here, right? But the world isn't Whittier College, right? So you're not, that momentum, it's not like Whittier. It will slow. It will slow down. You're going to have to make it for yourself, get out there. So if I had realized the incredible momentum Whittier provides, I would have exploited that more. I would have taken more advantage of it. I mean, right out of Whittier, I went to Geneva, worked at headquarters for UNHCR, had an incredible experience, right? And I knew Whittier had provided me that opportunity, but I didn't really, I thought it was more like a function of me, right? It was truly more a function of this institution and how I interacted with it, right? And so that is something, realize if you invest yourself here, really invest yourself, it will create an incredible momentum for you personally that you can exploit. And I think you have great examples of folks like René and Superintendent here, other panelists who have done that. But I wish I had known that coming in.
I just want to say that Sean did my reading for me too. I think answering your question about what didn't I know about Whittier that I do know now is that you really build lifelong relationships, not just with the friends that you have there sitting next to you, but with your professors. My children have 4, now call Fred Bergerson there and his wife René, their Bubby and Zadie. And so that kind of relationship that extends all the way down to my children, and that mentoring that goes on in a very paternal, in a positive paternal way, lives on throughout your adult life and post-college, and you should really cultivate those relationships while you're at Whittier and benefit from them later. That's what I hope to share.
I was just telling Paula over dinner that I didn't know anything about Whittier College, actually. My first the first time that I had physically seen Whittier College besides a brochure was my orientation day. So, and I came here because I came from Roosevelt High School in Boyle Heights, and my counselor said, you need to go to this place. I went 2 years. I liked it, but I didn't go finish there. But I think you'll do really well there. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I decided to come here, and I think I took for granted a lot of the things, a lot of the traditions and philosophies that Whittier College offers. So we come from a Quaker tradition, and although I'm not Quaker, I still remember that fondly. And especially as an educator, I think about the light, and I think about all of these things, and it's not until my adulthood, well now, that I embrace that, and the social justice philosophy of this campus. And while Whittier College and many other institutions across the nation still have a lot of work to embrace diversity and create equity on their campuses, I think that this is a model for other universities to follow. And so on a technical side, I hated writing papers, but you gotta believe that this education, it has served me well in my academics. I got compliments from my professors in my doctoral program about my writing, and I came from a very underserved school where everyone got A's, and I was challenged. I was in a magnet program, and I got challenged more than other students. But I knew that when I came to Whittier College, I wasn't academically prepared, but this place helped me grow so much in terms of I wasn't a stellar student, but I was eager to learn, and I was willing to learn from my mistakes. And so if I put all those things together about embracing our traditions, our philosophies, and putting everything together, I wish that I would have known more, and that I would have taken advantage more of those aspects. Sometimes not so touchable or that you can touch them. So that's something that I think as you get older, you reminisce about your college years too. So, but it definitely lives with me, and it lives in everything that I do with my students.
And I would agree with Cecilia. As far as writing papers, I hated writing papers here too. But what I didn't know was that in real life, you have to write reports. And when you do reports, it's like a paper, but different. And when my boss went to a liberal arts college as well on the East Coast. So I think that's one reason why I was hired too, because he liked the fact that it was a liberal arts college, and he had went to one and knew how great it is. And my reports he doesn't really have to do much editing, which is cool, because when I turn it in, it's kind of like the turnover time is sooner than he anticipated. You know what I mean? So because of all the papers for poli-sci or the sociology papers that I wrote here, for Whittier Scholars, my final project was on the underserved community, which was in Pico Rivera, where I live. And I wrote this huge paper and had Dr. Kaufman look at it and a couple other professors, that it kind of gave me the confidence as well as the practice that, it's going to be okay when you write those papers, and it's going to really pay off in the future.